Reformed Church.
The Bible says to not think more highly of ourselves than we ought, but to be sober. And that right there is a verse against optimism, right? Optimism is when you, for the sake of your emotions, right, you say, well, look at the bright side of things. Like, focus on the positive. You do that not because it's necessarily being truthful. You do that because of your emotions. You do it because I can't handle to look at the full reality of things, so I'll just look at the positive side of things. This is really why people, when they watch movies, when they play video games, when they go on vacation, when they whatever, they call it escapism, right? Because, and this is the thing that people, just generally speaking, talk about, because they sort of need an escape from reality. They want to, their mind needs a break from looking and staring at reality, because, again, reality to them is a mixed bag, which, unfortunately for the world, it's not even that, right? It's just, there is nothing positive apart from the Lord, but they would see life as sort of a mixed bag and that there are ups and downs, so they would say, well, again, they're going to focus on the positive things, and when their life seems too negative at a particular time, they're going to, all they can think about is just, I need either a break, and there's nothing wrong with vacation or anything like that, right? The same way that, if you ran a marathon, and, even with the Lord on the inside of you, it would be okay to take a water break. It's okay, you're working a lot and you want to go on vacation, it's okay to take a mental break from whatever you're doing too. That's fine, but we should never be seeking what the world seeks, though, this concept of escapism, though. And if I can just get a vacation, if I can just do this, if I can just, have the TV on for a few more minutes, if I can, and seeking sort of refuge in these things, because, if we were to take the world's mentality, because we want to just think positive, we want to just have our mind on something beside the negative things in this world. And again, when the world sees their life as a mixed bag, they just, again, focus on the positive or escape the negative by getting your mind sidetracked on something else. But the awesome thing for a believer, which I've said plenty of times before, is that as a believer, we're not trying to teach good things because we're trying to teach the positive side of things. Again, the Bible advocates sober-mindedness. That does not mean seeing the good side of things. That means be sober. That means see things in their reality, in their true light. I think, if I'm not mistaken, people will say that, I'm an optimist, or I'm a pessimist, or I'm a realist. And I'm not sure the exact definitions of those, but from my understanding, a realist would mean, obviously, just looking at things realistically. That's what the Lord advocates. He's never going to teach you good news, which, we teach the good news here all the time. But it's not called the good news because it's like this particular, that when you come to church, we're going to tell you the good news that you have in Jesus, but then there's bad stuff that happens all the time, as far as we are concerned, and we just don't want to focus on that. We just want to focus on Jesus. That's not the way that it is with the good news. The good news is not focusing on just the positive side of things. The good news is about being realistic. It's always about being sober, being realistic. That's why the Bible says, don't think too highly even of yourself than you ought to think. That would be being optimistic, right? But he's saying, be sober. Look at yourself as you truly are. Look at life as it truly is. But so when we hear about the good news, it's not about hearing the good side of things. And it's not that, also I was telling Pastor Zane and Miss Kim a while ago too, we were talking, that it's also not that the good news is sort of compartmentalized, where we come to church and, well, at least we have good news in Jesus. Because there's so many bad things that happen in my life all week long. It's nice to come to church and hear at least the good news that I have in Jesus. Because even if I don't have good news for everything else in my life, at least I have good news in Jesus. Now, we may hear that and say, well, what's wrong with that? That at least I have good news in Jesus, even though it's not necessarily good news for all this other, things that are happening in my life. But the awesome thing about Jesus is that it's not like Jesus just came to save you from hell or something, and everything else in your life is sort of just up in the air. What Jesus literally came to do for us is to touch all of those things in your life. The very things that you think are bad news for you right now in your life is the very thing that Jesus came to fix. So it's not that you have good news that's sort of compartmentalized over here, and then there is bad news that can happen for other areas of your life. What Jesus came to do is to fix all those different areas. So we've been talking about power to wealth recently. That's an area that is covered by the cross, or whether it's our health, or whether it's our family, or whether all of these different things, Jesus has provided a fix for those things. So it's not that we have good news regarding Jesus, but bad news sometimes in life when it comes to other subjects. In every subject, in my finances, as far as my body is concerned, as far as my actions are concerned, as far as my emotions are concerned, as far as my family is concerned, as far as all of those things, there is good news regarding those things. You understand? It's not that there's good news over here and bad news sometimes in my life. It's that, no, there's good news for my finances. I can be positive-minded regarding my finances, not because I'm looking at the positive side of things, but because Jesus, God sent the positive, capital P. He took everything that I don't want in my life. He took all my bad news to give me the good news. So I'm not seeing the positive side of things. God is wholly against optimism. God hates optimism because optimism is not being truthful with yourself. If Jesus had not covered everything, we would be teaching a message in this church just to as far as the things that Jesus covered. And we would be, obliged to tell you the areas in which Jesus did not cover. The reason why we get to teach good news every single service regarding those areas of your life, not as something separate from your life. It's not like, well, bad news for my finances, bad news for my family, bad news for this area or for that area, at least I have good news in Jesus. We're seeing it wrong. We're seeing like there are all these subjects and all these topics in our life, and Jesus is one of them, and at least in that topic, I have good news. No, Jesus touches all those areas of your life. I mean, honestly, Jesus, if you want to talk about the weather with someone that's not saved, you should be able to talk about the weather differently. God's given you authority over the weather. He's given you power over these things. There's not a single topic that Jesus did not give you provision for. So to be all kind of down in the dumps because, well, at least I have good news in Jesus, it's not at least anything. It's literally in that area where you think it's such bad news for you, Jesus did something about that. What we are doing, as we teach the kids upstairs, with our Arrow, children's ministry, is one thing that's even mentioned. I think it used to be even mentioned on the website, if it's not right now, that we're exploring the depths of what Jesus has already done. Just because you think something is so bad in a particular area of your life doesn't mean that it actually is. You perceive it bad because you think bad. You think wrong. It's the absence of what you're not seeing that Jesus did for that area that's making you so, pessimistic regarding that thing or so negative regarding that thing. But in any area, let me give you a quick example, and I'll just kind of let you go after this, is that there was a little girl that died in the Bible, and Jesus went to, her father went and got Jesus, and Jesus was going to raise her from the dead. And even regarding a little girl that has died, that might be one of the times, well, at least we have Jesus, though, right? Like Jesus over here, at least I have Jesus, though. There's bad news and stuff happening in my life, and despite the bad news that's happening in my life, at least I have Jesus. You're compartmentalizing him as if the good news doesn't touch that area. No, that father had good news regarding his daughter. It was good news regarding his daughter. He could have actually rejoiced. And I'm not saying that maybe he would have felt a certain, regardless of his feelings, he could have felt good. Not regarding that his, in the sense that his daughter died, not feeling good about that, but feeling good about the fact that that was fixed. This is why Jesus, I was talking to Pastor Zay the other day about this too, this is why Jesus, when he went into that room, there was a whole bunch of people weeping and mourning, and he went in there and asked them, why this commotion? Isn't that an amazing thing? Like, it's just so different from the way the world thinks, that he says, why this commotion? He's perplexed. Why would you be mourning this? Because he knows he's the resurrection and the life. He knows there's good news regarding even the death of that father's loved one. So it's not that father could look at that situation and say, well, at least I have Jesus. No, it's because I have Jesus regarding this situation. It's good news in this situation. This situation has good news for it. And so I would just encourage you just to look at your life through the lens of Jesus, and don't be optimistic. See what Jesus has done and see how that touches all these areas, and then you're going to end up being positive without being optimistic. You end up being positive by seeing things realistically. And that's the will of God for us. He wants to look at things realistically through the lens of what Jesus actually did. And if you really do that, then there's not going to be a single area in your life that you cannot feel absolutely positive about, because there's not a single area of your life that Jesus didn't touch. There's not a single area of your life that Jesus did not fix.
We hope you enjoyed this message from Reformed Church. If you have, please share this with someone else and help us get this unpopular message to the world. If you'd like to support Reformed Church, you can do so at reforminus.com/give. Also on our website, you can take advantage of our free messages, articles, and even full discipleship courses. Start reforming your mind now at reforminus.com.